True.
David, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I think everybody has a belief in what happens to us after we die, because I don't think any of us have any certain knowledge or absolute knowledge of what happens when we die. So consequently, whatever we choose to believe in, it is going to be a belief. We can assert that we go to nothing and life's a one-time journey, so embrace it for all you have, or we can assert that we reincarnate, or we can even assert things like heaven and hell, but it's all a belief.
Well,
go ahead.
I disagree on 2 points. One, I don't think that not everybody necessarily has a belief. There may be some people who haven't committed to any view. They just simply say, I have no idea what happens, and there's not enough evidence for any of it. But in much the same way that we don't assume existence. We don't assume that everything exists until there's good evidence to believe it doesn't. We actually do the inverse. We believe that nothing exists until there's evidence that actually demonstrates it. We do this because if we did the opposite, we'd believing in everything. So my position is until there's evidence to show what happens after death. I know I have this life. I don't know what happens afterwards. I think, based on all the evidence, that I'm going to rot in the ground and I will cease to be in any sense that matters or in any sense that is individual to me. It may not be the case, don't know. But in determining how to live my life, I'm certainly not going to live it as if I believe in, afterlife X, when I have no reason and no way to distinguish afterlife X from afterlife A through W.
And I think another risk that you run into if you want to take this sort of approach of, no one knows, which is true. I mean, fundamentally what you're saying is essentially right. But this can lead you down the primrose path, if you're not careful, to what's called postmodernism, where people sort of take this idea that, either all beliefs are equally valid, or another one is the one that kind of leads you in the direction of Pascal's wager too, which is to say, since no one knows, you can either die and just rot in the ground, or you can die and go to this wonderful paradise afterlife. So why not just embrace the belief that's happier, or that makes you feel better, or that is the more attractive one? Which would you rather? And I think that it starts getting you in a dangerous. Into dangerous waters, where you are just not really having rational bases for what you choose to believe. And now, whenever people ask me about an afterlife, I always like to say, hey, I think it's a great idea. I'm all for it. I'll be first in line if I know that there's something like that is waiting for me, but I don't know. And as Matt has said, I don't think it's intellectually honest to do this I'm going to hedge my bets approach to deciding what you want to believe, and I also don't think it's emotionally healthy. And I think as a practical person and as a rational person, I can say, here's the thing, I'm just going to make the best of this life because at least I know I have this one. And without anyone actually having the benefit of having come back from the dead to tell us, it's all great and I got pictures, then you don't want to fall into the easy, comfortable trap of just, this sounds good. This reinforces some sort of emotional comfort, or it helps me, stick a Band-Aid on an insecurity that I have. So I'll believe it for that reason.
But quickly to touch on one thing that Martin said, and then I'll let you respond, I promise. Kind of to touch on the postmodernist thing, the thing that you almost seem to be implying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, was that when you said that, we all have some belief. Well, that doesn't mean that they're all equally supported by evidence. If there's two possibilities, one is something that is me continues after I'm dead, and the other possibility, of course, is that it doesn't. That doesn't mean that the truth lies somewhere in between. There should be some way, hopefully, to figure out which is more likely. And while evidence or absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, is the common phrase, it actually is in the cases where we would expect to find evidence. I mean, if you tell me that you've got a cat in your trunk, and I open the trunk and I search it, and I don't find a cat, all of a sudden it's less likely that there's a cat in there. And if I dig around a little bit more and pull up the carpet and look in where the spare tire is, and I still don't find a cat, all of a sudden it's less likely there's a cat in there. And if I bring in, measuring devices and heat sensors, and I completely scour every centimeter of your trunk, all of a sudden it becomes really unlikely that you got a cat in there. And if the response is, well, it's invisible and intangible, all of a sudden you've lost any credibility and you've changed what your actual claim is. Yeah. So I would just be cautious, I guess, about saying that or implying that all ideas are somehow equal just because we can't know what's happening.
Well, I didn't mean to imply they were equal. I just meant to say that we have no absolute knowledge. So whenever you search for a belief, which we all do, we all wonder, we're all inquisitive by nature, so we're going to wonder what happens to us after we die. Definitely. Whichever one you embrace, make sure it serves you and society. And, I'm all with y'all on most of your criticisms and stuff, and I believe in non-aggression towards other people. But you have, belief isn't the only cause for aggression. You do have religious fanatics who will use their belief to justify aggression upon other people and try to impose their will and belief upon others. But you also have people that don't embrace any type of afterlife belief, essentially believe in nothing or atheism or something, and they'll cling to politics, and they'll have a fanatical political belief that asserts that they can impose their will upon other people in the name of their political belief, whether it's socialism or communism.
And then when you get the religious fanatics mixed with the political fanatics, then you really have a big can of worms.
Well, the other thing is I'm not quite sure where we're disagreeing. I mean, we may not be, because we just talked about the guy who went in and killed people in a Unitarian church, and it was because of his political beliefs, along with a couple other things. It's not believing that liberals are evil is not a necessary and sufficient cause to go in and kill them, but it was the motivating factor. That was his motive for going in and killing him. So yeah, you're right. I mean, whatever people beliefs inform your actions. That's what we talked about at the lecture this morning and earlier today. And it doesn't matter to me whether they're motivated by religion or politics. If you've got a belief that is harmful to yourself or somebody else, and it's not true, that's something you need to fix. And if you're not going to fix it, if it poses harm to others, somebody needs to step in and fix it. And that includes locking people up. I mean, we've locked people up because they're crazy and represent a danger to themselves and others.
Yeah, and I guess as long as the judicial system is based on a jury system and it's a reflection of the community, then I agree with all that, as long as it's not some heavy-handed police force or, somebody else's ideas that they're wanting to impose. But I agree, actually. I agree with a lot of what y'all say. I just, to me, I don't really paint religion as the all-evil, all-encompassing, evil-motivating system that is the direct cause for all the aggression in the world.
Well,
I don't see that at all.
Yeah, I hope we haven't given you the impression that our views are quite that simplistic.
No, and actually, no, you don't. And atheism itself can be vulnerable to political ideologies that can inspire people to aggressive acts. And
actually, no, it can't.
Well, I think it can, because I think once you don't believe in anything...
that's where you're misunderstanding.
If you don't believe in any type of afterlife, you're going to embrace everything in the here and now. I think once you go down that path, what you can tend to do is embrace a political ideology that justifies imposing your will upon other people for political reasons, not religious reasons.
But the mistake you're making is defining atheism as a belief in nothing, which is not what it is. Atheism is just a rejection of the idea of gods. It's disbelief in gods. A belief in nothing is something called nihilism, and that's an entirely different can of worms. Atheists embrace any number of widely disparate political views. Some of us are liberals, some are conservatives, many are objectivists. A few of us are Republicans. Most of us tend to be Democrats or independents. But in as much as this whole idea of, I don't believe in anything, so I just think I'm going to go ahead and impose stuff wreaking havoc on people. As I think Dawkins has written about this, the whole logical path from atheism to evil deeds is not really something that you can pin down as well as Because atheism by itself...
You can't get from atheism to any action, good or evil.
Because atheism just means you don't believe in any gods. It's like disbelief in unicorns. You can't draw a logical path between, I don't believe in unicorns, so I'm going to go and become a big political dictator.
Yeah,
it's only when atheism is, as we often apply it like in our blogs and that sort of thing, when you are responding to the claims that the religious are making, whether it's radical Muslims or dominionist Christians or people who want to, impose whatever religious, ideology on the laws. Our views as atheists will come up, but the mere disbelief in gods, that's like disbelief in unicorns, and you can't get from that to, because I don't believe in this god or this unicorn or the abominable snowman or leprechauns, I'm going to go and perform these acts.
We take actions based on what we believe, not what we don't believe.
Yeah.
You can't say, because I don't believe in Zeus, I'm going to take this action. In fact, those things that often get tied to atheism, both kind of in your example and in other examples from other people, like the problem with communist Russia had nothing at all to do, it wasn't derived from atheism. It was derived from an ideology which, while godless and consistent with atheism, has nothing at all to do with atheism. You can't get from, I don't believe in a God, to any action, good, bad, or indifferent. They're all due to something else that you do believe in.
Yeah. Whereas, someone you can get from a belief in a God where someone says, A, I believe in this God, and B, I believe this God wants me to do this thing for his greater glory, then you can get from belief to action. But you can't get from saying, well, I just don't believe in that, to a similar action.
That doesn't mean I don't take actions that are consistent with atheism, because while I don't believe in a God, I do believe, and we wouldn't be overly simplistic to say that religions are the ultimate source of all evil ever. I do believe that there are some religions and some religious views that are evil and are doing harm. So because I believe that that's the case, and because I have this other belief where I actually give a damn about other people and how it may affect me as well, I'm going to speak out about it. But that's not coming from my atheism. That's coming from the belief that somebody's doing harm.
But by the same token, we're the first guys to criticize atheists who do stupid things. Because we spent the whole last episode of this show and the whole intervening week on the blog and what have you doing just that.
And his actions didn't come from atheism either.
Yeah, it came from narcissism, I do believe.
Persecution complex.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
But we just wanted to clarify that point, because I think that you've, and it's understandable why you would think that way, though, because I think that's a lot of what the received information about atheism is that's floating around in our culture, that it's this sort of negative, pernicious thing, and that it equates to a belief in nothing, therefore anything goes. That's the straw man stereotype that a lot of people, especially on the far religious right, like to put out about atheism. And unfortunately, it's a meme that people pick up on, and it sounded like you had kind of picked up on it, so we wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that all atheists were going to go down the path to political dictatorship or aggression or anything. But, are y'all still there?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's just a delay. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I didn't want to insult you in that way, and I certainly don't believe
in fact,
that.
we appreciate you brought it up.
I know people that are atheists, and I get along fine with them, because we all live in the same culture, and we have cultural norms that we all abide by regardless of our belief. And so it doesn't really matter as long as we abide by our cultural norms. We can, go to the grocery store, and we can go to the restaurants, and we can live side by side without conflict, because we all believe in America, basically, in individual freedom and freedom of expression. And so as long as you're not doing something aggressive to somebody else, most people in this society won't have a problem with you.
Yeah,
and that really goes down to, I didn't mean to imply that all atheists are going to embrace communism or socialism or anything.
We just wanted to clarify that you said, and even afterwards you came back and said you didn't think all atheists were going to go down that path. The point is there's no path there. But it's fine. We just wanted to clarify it, because so often somebody will call in and say, you're atheist, so you believe in nothing. And then after clarifying that that's not true, actually, I believe in pretty much, I'm betting, most of the same things that you do, except for this existence of a God and the things that are directly derived from that. So we just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and it's and as we said to an earlier caller, I think today, yes, it would be lovely if we lived in a world where people just their beliefs were personal things, strictly personal, and there was no real inclination to interfere or impose or infringe upon the rights of others, based on what you believe about the world or about God or about some political ideology, etc. But we don't really live in that world, and so and we think that the healthy way to deal with those kinds of differences is what we're trying to do on this show, which is debate them and talk about them and have open discussion, and not do what the guy with the gun who wandered into the church did, which is not the good way to handle differences.
But I want to be fair, so go ahead and finish, David, because we're running short on time.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I just want to say I appreciate y'all's show, and keep up the good fight for freedom, because that's really what this is all about. It's all about individual freedom and responsibilities and the rights, and I think as long as we're all in that fight together, I could get into talking about God and all that, but there's no sense, because I think that's all about personal discovery and discovering what you want to embrace as an afterlife belief. And, whether an atheist whether you do believe in nothing, I'm not saying atheists do, but if you do believe that we all go to dust and to nothing, or you believe in reincarnation or whatever, as long as you're not imposing your will upon others, we should be able to get along and find the answers. So have a good one, guys.
Yep.
Take care.
And you'd be fine at dinner.